Okay, welcome everyone, and happy New Year. Welcome to everyone that's with us this morning at Lynn Community Television and everyone on Zoom. Once again, it's great to be able to use this space, and we thank Lynn Community TV for allowing us to use the space every month. My name is Rick Starboard. I'm the co-chair of the Economic Development and Government Affairs Committee, along with my co-chair, Glenn Morris, who's with us on Zoom this morning. I want to wave to everyone. Glenn, he's going to lower everybody's tuition at St. Mary's. So today we're joined by Noah Maslan from Maslan, right?
Yeah.
From Eden Properties to discuss what is going to be the biggest project in development in Lynn's history at $500 million. Thereabouts, development at the old Harbor House site on the Lynnway that will no doubt be a transformative project for the city of Lynn. It will change the view of entering Lynn from Boston, driving over that bridge and seeing something other than weeds and sticks. And it should work nicely with the project at the Builder 19 site currently under development that I think is supposed to open up in the spring. As I said, definitely be a transformative project for the city of Lynn. It will bring a lot of positives, but I'm sure there's going to be other impacts as well, as any development is. Hopefully, the positives outweigh whatever negative impacts there are, and it activates that space down there to bring more people down to the waterfront, not only for what's going to be at this site, but the Harbor Park that's going to, somebody, sorry. To activate that site, bringing more people to the waterfront, to the Harbor Park that's going to be opening up in shortly in the spring or summer. 850 new residences at this site, coupled with the others that are under development, should certainly be a positive to the businesses that are down there on the Lynnway and those that come into the downtown area. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Noah to let us know what's going on down there.
All right,
welcome.
you, Rick.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I think I was here maybe a year ago to give you to present the project at that point. And we have made some good progress since then. So I'm going to give you just go backwards a little bit, walk you through the project a bit, tell you where we're at, and happy to make this conversational. So if you have any questions sort of as I'm presenting, please just bring it up and we can talk about it. Okay, so yeah, so I show this slide to a lot of folks who probably don't know the site, familiar with it. I'm sure you all are extremely familiar with the site. So it is the parcel right at the base of the General Edwards Bridge, the beginning of Lynn Harbor, and the entry to the Saugus River. And it's bordered by a bulkhead that was built 100 years ago. That's in varying states of different conditions. So along the riverfront side, even though it's been there 100 years, it's intact. And then along the Saugus River, along the harbor side, you can see, it's in various states of disrepair. We've done a lot of analyses that's been required under the state permitting, and surprisingly, even with the bulkhead, missing tons of boards, it does provide some protection to the land because it is a very protected site because of Nahant. And so even when Nahant gets 10, 15-foot waves, this site max will get a 2-foot wave, even in the worst storms. just the overall image of the site today and the condition of the bulkhead. So just to step back a little bit, we're here because of all the work that has preceded us, that have been driven by the City of Lynn, the community processes, the EDIC, Jim Cowdell, previous mayors and city councilors. It's been, you know, as someone who spends most of the work I've done in my career has been in the city, in different neighborhoods in the city of Boston. It is the effort and the execution of planning that has happened in Lynn in this area is remarkable to us as developers. It's the waterfront planning that started really in 2006, I think, to sort of to rethink the vision of the waterfront and move it from a more industrialized use to something that is more focused and provides more access to the public. It is, I mean, this has happened for 20 years. And then with the power line relocation to then open up the site so that it could even be redeveloped. And then all the planning through the waterfront master open space plans that led to the rezoning to a new municipal harbor plan. It's very few municipalities actually put that into practice. There's a lot of planning, but it doesn't necessarily all translate into, you know, actionable new zoning. And so when we came into this, the stage was fully set, and we really see our role as executing the vision that was already created by the city. And in fact, by the city and the community. And in fact, when we submitted our site plan review, we didn't even need to request any zoning relief. It was fully compliant under the zoning that, you know, that was implemented after the all the planning that was put in place. So so where we are in terms of the permitting process, we've received comments so we're in the MEPA process right now, which is basically 3 steps. There's the initial environmental notification form, which we had submitted. We get some comments from all the state agencies and community organizations that we use then to create the next step, which is the draft environmental impact report, which is a huge 1,000-page document that basically analyzes all potential environmental impacts, from traffic to climate resiliency, to air quality. And so we had submitted that in 2024. And then received comments. And now we're working with the state agencies and anticipate submitting the final document, which is the final environmental impact report that will address any of their additional comments in the next 2 months or so. And once that MEPA process is complete, we then need to start the Chapter 91 waterways license process. So that's a process that you can't start until you have a MEPA certificate. And that process can be, you know, 8 to 12 months of state permitting. So we are charging ahead and hope that we can complete that process in 2025, and then, you know, start construction thereafter. At the same time, we're working with the state to secure public infrastructure dollars on some of the public infrastructure work for the coastal infrastructure, as well as the new intersection, park, and those kind of elements. And we're working closely with the mayor's office and the delegation and the administration to do that. So we are on track. It's, you know, it's just to be totally frank and honest, it's a bit of a slog on the state permitting side. There are a lot of conflicting regulations in terms of, there's a strong desire for more housing in the state. Everyone acknowledges that we need more housing, that we have a huge demand issue, and as well as commercial development. I mean, the vision for this site, right, is for it to be, the vision for the site is that we create a new South Harbor waterfront commercial district, which will include like 26,000 square feet of new retail residential space on the ground floor that leads out onto the Harbor Park. As Rick said, 850 units of housing, 10% of which will be deed restricted affordable, which is consistent with the Lynn housing plan. I think this is the first project in Lynn to do that, as well as coastal resiliency improvements and, a new gateway as we go into the city. So just to refamiliarize you with the overall site plan, the 8-acre park, 3 buildings. This is the new commercial district with restaurants that spills out onto the park on the ground floor. So this is a view of that view is looking from this new road looking down towards the waterfront. So that's looking down towards the waterfront. And then this view is looking back up that road. And then this is a view of the proposed waterfront park and plaza area. So that's really where the project is right now. I think we're working hard through the permitting process, and I'm happy to take any questions.
How about just the timeline, like you said, another year before you get your final permits from the state?
Yeah.
Then construction starts in 26.
Yeah, I mean, we're hoping to try to get something going by the end of the year if we can. A lot of this is really dictated by the permitting process and finalizing the infrastructure dollars with the state.
So it was first level of every building, resident parking?
So each building has parking on that ground level. And this building is purely residential. There's no retail in this building. It's really important to be able to concentrate the retail and restaurant space so that it becomes, synergistic and feels like an urban commercial district. And so the retail really wouldn't do well over here. The fact that we've concentrated it all in this corridor that then spills out onto the plaza that's programmed, with concerts and other events. So there is parking on the ground floor of this building and this building as well, but it's tucked behind all the retail space. So you wouldn't see any of that along this commercial space. And then the rest, there is some surface parking as well.
And public parking for public access to the pier.
Definitely. So there are 50 spaces located right here that will be accessible for public parking related to the fishing pier and any other programming for the park. And I mean, one of the things I should have mentioned before, which you all probably know, is the planned promenade that's to go all the way around Lynn Harbor is going to start here at the General Everett Bridge. And so anyone who wants to, bike around that area or access it and walk, you will be able to, if they take a car here, we'll be able to park, right there and access the promenade. And then all the other surface parking will be available for customers, and folks coming to restaurants and that kind of thing.
And will there also be like a turn-in area for buses, for those that take public transportation?
Yeah, so
I see that little, what I think is the original cutout.
that is the original cutout. The reason that it still appears there is that is something we do need to work out with DCR and DOT, because that is DCR land, the jug handle
Mhm.
area. But what we have designed the plan so that it can accommodate the future plans relative to the Lynnway. And I know that planning is going on right now with the I don't know whether it's going to end up being a bus rapid transit down the middle. There's supposed to be this multi-use path that to allow for bikes as well as new bus shelters. And so the idea is that I think that the planning suggests that there would be a bus stop in that area. Yeah.
That could be good for both the coastal.
Oh,
development as
definitely,
well.
definitely. Yeah.
Looks like you've gotten rid of the third lane on Lynnway.
Oh, so we haven't. But what we've overlaid there is what the configuration is that MassDOT has included for the Lynnway reconfiguration. And as well as the General Edwards Bridge. So these lines that you see sort of overlaid is the currently designed proposed configuration of the new General Edwards Bridge. So we actually had to reconfigure our site a bit to accommodate that so that it wouldn't end up taking land.
And just to kind of touch on what you said about makes it look like the third lane is gone. That is, not that I agree with
I mean,
it,
we've talked about it
right,
before.
is the plan. When I was on the council, we all went into Boston to check out a certain neighborhood. I personally don't think I think it's kind of apples and oranges, but the plan is to take the middle lanes of the Lynnway and turn them into bus lanes and put the bus stops on the median strip. As
And then put
Noah
a car
said,
there trying to
bus
catch a bus.
shelters, and then you would cross the street. But as somebody that drives that Lynnway multiple times a day, that would be a total disaster to remove one lane from the Lynnway.
Yeah.
That's another project that's down the line, but
So where does that, if we don't get to that, where does the line form then without the overlay?
Well, so what we have designed our project so that it really can accommodate either. So we have set it back. We set the parking and the entrance back far enough so that whatever configuration
You're not gonna lose any
happens.
spots?
Yes, correct.
I'd love
In
to.
fact, we had a meeting yesterday with MassDOT to talk about the General Edwards Bridge alignment. They're at 25%, I guess they call it 25% pre-design right now. And they anticipate, I think, putting the bridge out to bid in 2028. And so they have no interest in removing parking spaces, because if they have to take land, they have to pay for it. There's a whole state requirements around that. So we're trying to coordinate with them very closely. And they too are trying to figure out what the plan is for the Lynnway, because they need to make sure the bridge bridge alignments can fit well with whatever the Lynnway alignments are as well. So they're working on that.
I know one end is, of course, behind Walmart, but where exactly does it end? Is it the very tip of the entrance into Nahat? Where will the beach end be
Sorry,
of the park?
of the let's
Boardwalk? Yeah.
their
the
park
overall
or the harbor
development.
park? Their park or the harbor park?
so so this is our site here, the General Edwards Bridge, and this is the proposed promenade, and our project right here. And so there'll be this 8-acre park here, and then the promenade will continue with access to the harbor park, which is under construction right now. And then I think the long-term vision is for that promenade to extend all the way around Lynn Harbor.
That's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
No, because,
And because this plan up here, this is taken from the waterfront master open space plan that was developed, I think, finalized in 2019.
because I believe that Mayor Nicholson is placing an addition, taking a little part of the road coming down onto Lynn Shore Drive, a little part of that for bicycling, am I correct?
They're pretty much done now. They took the right lane
Right.
as it cuts down by the old porthole site and turned that into
Exactly,
bike lane.
but I was wondering if this park is also going to align, and you're saying the future plans are that it is going to go on further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that the long-term plan includes trying to connect to the Northern Strand, bikeway and have this all connected at some point.
But also the boardwalk that goes from basically the rotary at Lynn Shore Drive all the way to this site. So the EDIC at the ferry terminal, that site has already gone out to bid to have that boardwalk developed. The breakwater site, they have their boardwalk, and then the old the clock tower building has to do theirs as well. So that'll all tie that in. The only part that you really can't cut through and across without kind of going around the outskirts of it is the National Grid site.
Yeah.
In doing the boardwalk that is going, will there be a section of the boardwalk for bikes and moving vehicles versus a section for walking? Or is it all?
I don't
gonna
know
be
how
one?
that's,
Because
if they're
it's-
gonna,
Right now, that is a big issue for people who are walking anyway.
There-
Because lots of vehicles are going up and down at the same time, in the same location.
right now, the bike lane, and it's, as Noah said, the Northern Strand is to be able to basically come from Everett and
Yeah.
come down that right lane of the Lynnway. It's basically on the railroad tracks until you hit Summer Street. And then they're doing the bike lanes down North Common Street that will come down Market Street and then onto the Lynnway down to the beach.
And the master open space plan is very specific around the dimensions for the promenade so that it can accommodate pedestrians and bicycles. And I believe in the amendment to the municipal harbor plan is a minimum of 20 feet width with a preference for 30 feet of promenade width so that there could be a section for pedestrians as well as cyclists.
Rick, short of the National Grid obstruction, what do you think the realistic time is to connect them?
Every developer that's put on them, they're responsible to put that boardwalk in for all of their properties. And the only one right now who's kind of behind, I guess, a little bit is the clock tower building.
But they're gonna do it?
Yes, they have to do it. And so EDIC is doing their property that goes from the ferry terminal up to the clock tower site. They just need to fill in that gap to join it to the breakwater site. So the people that live right now in breakwater, and even those that live a little further down at Seaport, will be able to walk easily to the ferry terminal along the water's edge.
I'm sorry, I've been addressing it. What about the portal site? Any word on?
No, still going through the permitting. As Noah said, the chapter 91 permitting.
Same issues then?
Yeah, it doesn't
Or
happen
takes some-
overnight. Pat McGrath still owns that site, and he's still trying to get the permitting done on that. Just like it took him forever, he owned the Building 19 site, got it all permitted, and then sold it to the folks that are doing the post road development now. But it took years to get that done, as you guys are finding out. But you would just think that all this time you know, you alluded to how badly we need additional housing and that they would speed this process up, and it just doesn't seem to get any better.
Coming.
Yeah.
It is?
Well, something's gotta change because it's ridiculous. Like, you have to wait that
Right,
long.
right.
It's,
The other than that work.
it's, we have lots of environmental regulations, and this is a highly regulated site because of its access to the waterfront. And when you layer on top of that the concerns around climate change and resiliency and the requirements to sort of meet those standards and project out 100 years to deal with that, as well as a change in state regulations which prefer more natural coastlines versus a coastal engineering structure like a bulkhead. And there are literally conflicting regulations, state regulations. And so you have folks from different state agencies who literally are, not aligned. And it is really complicated. And so they have no clear path either.
So along the harbor front portion of the property, that bulkhead wouldn't be replaced, it would be left natural?
No, so what we're proposing, so what we've tried to do is to take, we've worked with our engineers. I mean, we know what many of the state regulators want. They want this to be turned back into a natural shoreline, which would erode, But we've gone to our engineering team and we've tried to propose a solution that is responsive to the actual conditions at the site, in addition to being able to be permittable under the regulations and the guidelines. And so where we've gotten to is that so what I will say is the master open space plan that was developed in 2019, and I think it was a process that went from 2017 to 2019. The city and the state engaged Woods Hole Group, which is like the premier organization for understanding coastal processes, and they did a huge analysis and report around this site specifically. They measured tidal currents in this area. They determined at the time, and it's published in the report, that the appropriate solution around this coastline is to keep the bulkhead along the Saugus River and to think about a more natural shoreline with basically a stone bank, further landward that would be protected for the promenade and park. And so we went back to Woods Hole Group and sort of understand that basically because this is the beginning of the Saugus River, there are regular daily tidal currents that can come in and out, right, every day. And the bulkhead is performing well here. And in fact, there is oh, I'm sorry, seawall. So this would, yeah, a man-made seawall. This is,
bulkhead, the wall,
yeah,
all the homeless for?
Yeah, when you come over the bridge into Lynn, you look down on the right-hand side and you see that wooden wall with the big
Pillars.
columns holding it up. But if you see that from the other side, kind of as it runs behind the harbor park, what was the original landfill, it's gone. And at one time, that was a viable paved street there that has just all collapsed because the bulkheads deteriorated. It allowed the water to come in and come out, which caused the erosion, and it caused that street to collapse.
So,
yeah, this is on the harbor side, right there.
so if you allow a natural barrier on the harbor side, even with that stone retaining wall a little bit inland,
Yeah.
wouldn't the winter storm sort of shred up the walkway or any grassy area that you tried to put in between the stone wall and the seashore?
So that's what we've looked at. And so we arrived at a solution which keeps the bulkhead is intact here, is to keep the bulkhead along the Saugus Riverside, have it return. And then we analyzed with our engineers if we could provide a beach area and create a more natural shoreline along the harbor, would it erode? And so what we found is it's actually we can support this here in part because of, as I mentioned at the beginning, Nahant is so protective of this location that the any waves here is like the max we get would be 2-foot waves. And so we are setting the, we're required, essentially, this is now what's called a natural resource area. And under the regulations, you have to essentially, keep and preserve the natural resource area. So we're creating a more natural planted bank at the currently created coastal bank, which is at elevation, I think, 10.7 or 11. And the mean high water mark here is, I believe, like 4.5, 5. So we do have, like, it will get up there, at, when you have, like, I don't know, 50-year storm. So it'll work there. But if we were to remove this bulkhead here, because of the water coming in and out on a daily rate, this would erode. It would be, it would erode. There would be implications for the bridge. There would be implications for the Lynnway. There would, it would eat into this park. Yeah,
So
sorry.
we have to truck in sand like they do in Revere every year, I guess, one of the questions for the beach.
There would be some sand nourishment required, not to the extent that we're talking
there
about in
water
Revere
over there?
Beach, because Revere Beach is fully exposed.
Yes.
This is, yeah,
The portion of the seawall that is harbor side, because you have it cornered,
yeah,
because we know the harbor side erodes with time like it has.
yeah.
Who's gonna be responsible for maintaining that portion of the seawall or the seawall, or the bulkhead, sorry?
So we're working that out now with both the city and the state to figure that piece out. But one of the important components here is that we are making sure that that part of the overall infrastructure cost here includes maintenance to fund an escrow that will allow this to be maintained, long term. So to deal with like any future sand that you would need to bring in, any sort of repairs to the coastal bank. Once we repair or replace the bulkhead, that is the easiest, lowest cost maintenance approach to the site. I mean, this thing's been here for 100 years and probably no one has ever spent $1 on it.
But it will be maintained by either the state
Yeah,
or.
yeah. So we're working that out.
Any other questions?
The residential units, those are gonna be apartments or
Yeah.
condos?
Do you happen to know if there's any plans to do anything as far as repairing the bridge before anyone goes in?
The General Edwards Bridge? Like Noah was saying, that's in the plan now. I hope I'm retired before I break ground on that site, but,
The current condition of that bridge is a mess and they did some repairs on it.
oh
I
yeah,
just wonder if there's any future repairs.
I don't think they're gonna put any money in it. You'll never see that bridge go up again.
Right.
Until they take it down.
Now, as far as the walk that goes off that property, who maintains that?
That's state,
DCR. Yeah.
and that was just recently replaced.
Yeah, and DCR is, we're working very closely with them. We'll be granting them an easement, so there'll be public access from the sort of public parking with access to the promenade and the walk. Yeah,
Which looks like it'll be a better walk from your car than it is right now. If you wanna go fishing, and people do it, I see them out there
Oh,
fishing. but
yeah.
I don't know if it's the residents catching dinner or what, but they're out there. Any other questions?
The first building that's scheduled to open, what do you estimate for that?
Well, we anticipate it will take about 18 to 20 months of construction once we start. So, you know, the end of this year, beginning of next year. So I guess we'd be opening in, you know, beginning of 2028, the building would open.
No,
Which is coincidentally when they plan to start construction on the bridge.
that could hamper things a little. But they're going to be building a new bridge before they take down
Yes.
the old bridge.
Yeah, I mean, that's why they're moving it to the side. So the old one will stay, you know, that will be fully accessible. when
Like
they
what
build
they did on
the old-
Western Ave.
Well, they built that temporary bridge
Yeah. what
out of
they
an
had
erector set.
Yeah.
And
No, you'll still be driving over the current bridge during construction while it's being built right next to
they're
it.
just shifting the new bridge, that'll be the new permanent bridge, kind of inland, or outward,
It will
really.
be right, it'll be built right next to it.
What's the estimated time to build a bridge?
I don't know.
It's
I
different,
asked that
it's different
question,
here in
actually.
Lynn than it is. If
Yeah.
just look at Western Ave.
Yeah, right. 20 years.
I don't know. I asked yesterday when we were meeting, but I don't think I got an answer. So.
So no, I know you're not Post Road, but
Yeah.
like the number 7 in the corner, is that a potential future building?
Oh, right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they, so the Post Road site, I think they have permits for maybe 515 units total, maybe about 20, I don't know. So they're building, I believe 300 or close to 300 in this first building. And then their plan is to build a second building here. And I believe they are gonna have to amend their permits. Get a chapter 91 license, because this area is in the is required to be permitted under chapter 91. But they have been really fantastic to work with. You know, when we were going through the site planning, and we know that the community and the city's vision was to try to create more of a street network here so that we break up the parcels so it could create more opportunities, feel more like a neighborhood and less as a, you know, sort of gated community. And, you know, they actually moved their building over so that we could create this interior street that had essentially 2 sides. You know, I think little by little, that's what will start happening here. And as we start to integrate, you know, the Harbor Park and, you know, connect all these things, you know, it's going to be a remarkable transformation. It's not going to happen as fast as any of us would like, but it's going to be great.
Could benefit Walmart quite a bit. Have they put in any, submitted any permits to do any, a bigger property or bigger building?
No, actually, that property is owned by the Copies next door that used to own Seacrest. Yeah, I've always been one that said that they should kind of be on the other side of the Lynnway, you know, maybe something on the gear plant site. I see, as I go back and forth up the Lynnway all the time, I see folks who shop at Walmart and cross the street to take the bus going back into whether it's Revere, Chelsea, or whatever. And, you know, I look around in North Station, all the residential development done there, and Chelsea and every place else. I think it would make more sense to be on the commuter rail line. And the talk is to put a station, you know, a public stop at the Riverworks site. So that would be another commuter rail site.
And leave the waterfront for residential, makes a lot more sense, right?
Right. I think that's probably the only waterfront Walmart
Yeah, right.
on the East Coast, but yeah, and it still remains to be seen what's going to happen with the gear plant site as well. You know, they're just kind of waiting for something to come along.
Where's the
but
gear plant site?
it's behind Pride Motor Group,
Okay,
the car dealerships
The
and
entrance is
all.
between the two.
okay.
And that was purchased by Charlie Patsios quite a while back. So he owns that. He also owns some of the access properties to that as well, including the oil change, what used to be the oil change place directly across the street from this site.
Next to the Sunrise Auto.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Lenny might even be looking to retire at Sunrise too, so. But talking about that site, there was some talk that I had heard a few years back about the potential for like an underground walking access to get to the other side if there was a commuter rail station there, or to access the buses going into Boston, that you'd be able to walk from your site across the street under the limit.
Oh,
Have you heard anything about that?
no.
Oh, okay.
The only thing I've heard about was the desire to have some sort of connective, with the new bridge coming over, so that you can connect the promenade sort of under
Mhm.
that way. Not underground, but just, underneath the span.
But to your earlier point, asking about how the Lynnway aligns with it all, that's probably the best rendering of what it looks like now.
If the bridge is gonna remain, how are they gonna connect it? Like a zigzag?
Yeah. So and it's hard to see, but the line, as you can see, the lines, it will gradually come back essentially to,
It almost looks like the new bridge would be over the old bridge. When you look at the way the lines are, the existing bridge here, but those lines depicting the new bridge.
yeah, it will
Oh,
generally,
wait, no, I see it.
yeah,
I'm looking at
sorry.
the black line.
Yeah, I know, it's not, so it is right here, so it will gradually shift and align back. With the
People
line.
going southbound are gonna have to basically bank left.
No, I mean, I don't think it will be that dramatic, it will just.
I think over time, it becomes the norm. Like if you look at the Beverly Salem Bridge and kind of
Yeah.
what we were used to going up Bridge
Yeah, yeah,
Street in
yeah.
Salem and then crossing over, and then they built the new bridge, and it seems so far off to the left, but now it's just natural.
I mean, the other thing that's gonna happen is that there is this land that's gonna get created on the other side of where that section of the bridge in the Lynnway was. So that there's gonna have to be a whole conversation, with the city around what happens.
And that's the oil change site?
No, I mean, this is where you see, the existing Lynnway
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
right here, that will be removed. And so that land will end up, to be
Adjacent to.
Oh, yes, adjacent, well, adjacent to that site, but also all of this.
What's that now? Marshland?
It's just
Who
kind
owns
of
that?
overgrowth that sometimes gets cut down. I noticed
Oh, there it is.
recently a couple of homeless sheds on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is, who owns this?
Yeah, who owns
Is this
this?
part of Gearworks, or is
I
this
don't
part
know if
of
Grid-
National Grid? I think it's National
Yeah, I
Grid.
think they still may own the property because
Yeah.
initially that's where the power lines crossed the
That's
Lynnway.
right.
So another decade for permitting on that? Bad joke.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Grid or the GE or who owns that.
But suffice to say, it's not zoned residential at the current time or anything or commercial.
I don't know what it's.
It's a water, there's I don't remember there's a waterfront designation to that area. I'm not sure which one. And I believe residential is allowed,
Right?
under it. I don't
Hey,
remember.
since you have that map up, so refresh my memory, where's the oil change site? And then there's a place next to it too, right?
Right, the oil change.
It's
site's
right
there.
here,
And then what's the
and
one
then
right
this
next to
is
that,
Sunrise
Pride?
Auto here.
No.
Some other car
Not sure,
show.
not
Yeah, yeah,
sure.
yeah, North Shore Auto.
But then
Right.
kind of just next to that, on the other side of Starbucks,
Mhm.
where the cars are all parked and there was a car lot there.
Right.
That's coming down, and that's another, I think, 220 units
Yeah, right.
of housing going up there.
Wow. When's groundbreaking on that?
April.
Anytime.
Oh, wow.
Suzanne, do you have any answers to that?
Yeah, April. Can you hear
April.
me?
Yep,
Wow. And how many units again, Rick, was that?
I think 220 or somewhere around that. And that was one, this site has 10% affordable
Mhm.
at what, 60%?
Yeah.
Of AMI. That site, they didn't get their permits in before the change on affordable housing. So instead of making a percentage of those affordable, they paid, I think, a couple of $1 million into the Affordable Housing Trust, into the city, which is an option developers have, that if they can't make a percentage of the units affordable, then they pay a percentage of funds into the Affordable Housing Trust.
Is any of the building 19 affordable, or is it all market rate?
It's
I
all-
think they got in market rate
It's all market rate.
That's money, no affordable.
before that change took effect. A lot of developers went and got their permits before that
And
change.
How
was
many
made.
units is that, just to refresh my memory? The building 19 site?
It's like 3 something in the existing building.
I think the one being built now is 290 something,
And yours would be, the proposed would be what? Those three sites?
850.
Yes,
That We Love Lynn building that has a big sign.
yeah, Bob Maloney's on Zoom with us right now.
AW3.
That's A.W. Perry. On the old Gorelick site?
Yes.
Yes, that's Bob Maloney at the bottom square.
Yeah, what can I tell you?
And what's that going to be?
Bob?
So in the long run, we'd love to redevelop that site. For the foreseeable future, those two buildings, the former Gorelick Farms buildings, will remain as industrial buildings. We've signed leases with tenants in the big building with the I Love Lynn sign on it. That'll keep that as an industrial site for at least the next 10 years. The building next door to it, 680 Lynnway, where Sky Chefs has leased that building, but that lease expires in another 3 years. That's potentially a redevelopment site. But we're kind of challenged. I don't foresee, and I think Rick has said that he agrees with me on this. I don't foresee that our site would ever be residential, merely because we're next to the city's wastewater treatment plant. And we're in a very a more industrial zone than any of these other properties that we're talking about here on the screen that are farther away from the industrial uses. So we really don't see residential as an option for redevelopment of our site. But who knows? You know, it's probably a little ways off before we can redevelop our site. We do own the 10 acres out on Circle Ave behind the buildings. That is also a challenge site because it's a former landfill. So it would be more expensive to develop on our 10 acres. But we love to develop who knows, clean manufacturing, clean tech, green tech, pharmaceutical manufacturing, medical device manufacturing, something like that. It'd be a great use for that site. But that business is, leasing in that business is kind of ground to a halt for the time being. So we don't really know what we'll build on that site, but we look forward to the day when we can build on it. So.
And the plus to that is those are jobs there. And a lot of the sites that we see being developed into residential right now are all sites that at one time were commercial, where people went to work. You know, whether it was, you know, Building 19, I worked there as a kid in high school. You know, Harbor House, Beacon Chevrolet, you know, all these places where Jerry's, where the Caldwell is on Monroe Street. You know, these were all sites at one time people went to work at. And once those sites go from commercial to residential, they never come back. So to have an industrial site, which I think Lynn is kind of lacking in for what is a blue collar city. And, you know, we're kind of getting off track, but we've talked about this before with a lot of our members even are in the construction business and all. And just having a place to be able to operate out of and park their equipment, and, you know, there's not much in Lynn to accommodate that. And those are employers. You know, Lynn is not a bedroom residential community. we're still a working class community. And it's great that we have sites like that people can still go to work at.
Rick, what was the last plan, to the best of your knowledge, for the year factory in terms of commercial, residential, light industrial, or what have you?
It was mixed
Mixed use?
use, yeah, but up to 1,200 residential units.
Yeah, but mixed use, like, no offense, like with a little commercial on the first floor, mixed use with lab space and maybe somewhere in there too.
Right, well, that was, a hope was biotech, but
Yeah,
that industry is kind of
Slow.
collapsed. And and they were taking over everything in Boston, even residential properties, they were turning into biotech space in Boston. And now you see it all the time, massive layoffs in that industry. Any other questions? Any other questions on Zoom? Okay.
I have a couple questions.
Sure.
First of all, just what is the height for each of those 3 buildings?
Oh, the 2 along the waterfront are planned to be 7-story. And then the one along the Lynnway, I believe, is 12 stories.
What does that translate to foot
Oh,
wise?
Into building height? That's a good question.
About 120 feet.
Yeah, I guess it's probably 130 feet-ish on for the one on the Lynnway. And then the 2 7-story buildings are, I believe they're around 85 feet. One of the things that's important, particularly for the buildings with the retail on them, and that we have really good head height for the first floor spaces for successful retail. So the span of the retail spaces, we're trying to create at least 16 to 18 feet clear height inside those spaces for successful retail.
Yeah. Cool. And I'm also thinking of sight lines and stuff from other locations, but that's good to know. And this isn't a question for Noah so much, but just in terms of the overall development strategy with that Walmart, it's going to become like an island there, with all these cool developments around it. We've talked about the irony of the waterfront Walmart, and they have a 100-year lease on the property, but what sort of mechanisms does the city have, or different groups or developers have, to maybe incentivize them to, to trade, to reconfigure, to redevelop, to do like a Saugus style 2-story Walmart as a compromise so they can grab some additional footprint, that kind of stuff? Has anyone been talking along those lines?
It's a private site, so it's what the owner wants to do with them. But that being said, years ago, when I first got on the council, I had kind of brought that whole Building 19 site, the Harbor House site, that site, and talking to somebody, and I said, it would be great if they did a Market Street type development like exists up in Linfield. And the person said that I was talking to said, it's funny you say that. And he said, you know who did that site? And I said, no. And I think it was SW or WS Properties. And when you go on their website, they're in partners with the copies on that Walmart site, as well as the Walmart site on Highland Ave in Salem. But that never came to fruition. They had 3 different owners who weren't in tune with one another at the time to put it all together to make it work.
Yeah.
I think just also from the developer, from our perspective, as this waterfront gets redeveloped and you see new buildings here and you see the activity and the success of the commercial district that'll be on the ground floor of our buildings, I think it'll be increasingly viable for them to think about redevelopment, of portions of their site or reconfiguration.
and the increased foot traffic.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, all the residents around there, will be going to Walmart to go to the grocery store, like it will be, that there's just going to be such a huge increase in population to to access that.
The Walmart can't handle the foot traffic now.
It may be a two Walmart just on the same site.
And you could also be sucking in people from Point Pines and Oak Island. And
Right.
Right, well, that Gibson building just opened up on the other side of the
Right.
bridge
They're
there,
gonna
Yeah.
want somewhere to go.
and that's, I think that's close to 500 units in there. Never mind what's going on Revere Beach.
Hmm.
I can't even see the sun come up anymore.
I was 3-hour traffic jam, just coming back from Winthrop. I couldn't get out of it.
Yeah, I leave my house in Lynn by 6, just in the morning, just to not have to deal with so much traffic on the Lynnway. And I'm on North Shore Road, right down the street from the Wharf Restaurant. And I look out my office window by 6:45, traffic is stopped.
It's gonna get better once they merge that new bridge together.
Anything else? I think Glenn has dropped off to get to his meeting. But we are working on future meetings with Mayor McGee to update us on the MBTA now that he's taken over as chair of the MBTA Control Board. We're trying to lock down a date with them. We're also trying to get somebody from mass taxpayers in, but trying to align the dates do not work. And now with the new legislative session beginning for our legislature, bills get filed, and once that deadline passes and our legislative delegation has had a little time to absorb some of the bills that have been filed, to maybe bring them in to update us on some of the bills that have been filed in the legislature that could potentially have impacts on us as business folks. So stay tuned for that. Ryan, do you have anything to add?
Just next Wednesday morning, the 15th at 8:30, we're gonna have a breakfast club at the Boys and Girls Club of Lynn. The following Tuesday on the 28th, we have a ribbon cutting and a reopening of the Lynn Mobile on the corner of Chestnut and Weston. We just did that over. Thank you, Noah. And on one last thing, effective February 1st, the chamber will have a new location. We're relocating downtown, so we'll have more of a presence downtown. So we'll be moving down to 614 Washington Street. So that'll be effective February 1st.
Which is the 4 stories building?
Right next to the museum.
Museum.
Yes, yep. So for those that have, and I know my partner's in that B&I group, along with Santiago from King Movers is in that group, and they meet the same day we meet, it'll be an easy walk over for them too. I know Santiago makes this meeting a lot himself, but so that'll be a good move. Noah, thank you very much for joining us. I'm
Oh, yeah.
sure we will have you back again
Yeah, I would-
as things continue to
any-
develop.
Anytime, and thank you for the support and engagement. We really appreciate it. It's critical, and I'm happy to come back anytime.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone on Zoom. See you soon.
Really good.
End it.
Yeah.
How you doing?